Good morning, everyone. Hi, Caterina.
Ciao, Bruno.
Hello, Bertolt.
So, Bruno, you say that for the past 15 or 20 years, the nature of digital technologies has changed. They are no longer products, but as you say, and you write in your book, they are architectures within which we live and work, following the rules established by their owners. And I'd like everyone to sit for a moment with this, right? So I'm going to repeat it because it's a very powerful line. It's architectures within which we live and work. So my question for you is, when did we move in, and who is the landlord?
Yeah, we moved in starting something like 20, 25 years ago, when the nature of the software we use and the digital technologies we use has started to shift. We still consider them today products that we buy and own and control and use freely. But the reality is that slowly at first and then very rapidly, they have turned into platforms, so architectures that we cannot buy. We used to be able to buy a piece of software like Microsoft Excel, which is one most of us use, just as an example. Now we cannot buy it anymore. We rent access. We subscribe to it. And we open an account, we get a password. Note that the password is the same thing that you give at a checkpoint. And you enter into space on the cloud that is controlled by somebody else. The cloud is somebody else's computer. So your data, your processing, your activities now sit in somebody else's computer behind this gate, this password.
Absolutely. And why is this problematic?
Well, it's problematic for several reasons. The first one is these systems are dominating and continue to dominate even more all the significant processes of our social, political, and economic life. All these processes, little by little, move through platforms, digital platforms. These platforms are controlled by someone who has developed them, who has encoded in the way they function characteristics of physical architecture. Think of this theater. You are all turned this way because the designer of this theater put the stage here. If you had put the stage down there, it would be turned in the other direction. Architectures define what we can do inside them, and the same is true for digital architectures. And because we are moving all our processes into these platforms, what is happening is, and I'm borrowing here a sentence from a Belgian philosopher, these technologies that used to be our helpers now are becoming our condition. They're the condition within which we live, and therefore they can determine a lot of the things. And one last point, for us European, is the problem is compounded by the fact that almost all of these technologies are American, are built, owned, controlled, shaped by American big and small technology companies. And as we know, America is living now through a big transformation at the political and power level. We see this convergence of political power and cloud power, and of course that puts us Europeans in a position of vulnerability.
Of course, and it's part of our daily news and everything we read. So I'd like to talk about algorithms for a moment, right? So algorithms have been deciding what we see on social media for about 19 years now. Think of your Facebook feed, for example. And then in 2018, 8 years ago, we had Cambridge Analytica, and we saw what algorithms can do to politics and society. And we did almost nothing, right? So what does that mean for politics and society?
Well, we saw the Cambridge Analytica scandal. We also saw Edward Snowden's revelations, of course, and plenty of other examples of how the way technology is designed and shaped can deeply influence and manipulate us individually and us as a society. And there are many reasons for this. The first one is these technologies may give us the impression they're neutral and objective because they are machines, but the reality is they're not. Software by itself is political. Every line of software is a sort of rule that tells you what you can do and what you cannot do. And they encode the worldviews of those who have developed them. And of course they encode, for example, in the case of artificial intelligence chatbots, they encode all the biases that are in the training data and all these kind of things. Second problem from a political perspective is we are having increasingly our public debates and deliberations and our public decisions run through platforms that are controlled by private entities that create a huge imbalance of power. And the third element, which I think we are not sufficiently aware of, is these technologies may give us the impression of democratizing things because they allow us to find information easily, to disseminate our ideas to everyone. They give voice to people who didn't have voice before. But by nature, they're not democratic. They are authoritarian because they're based on surveillance and control. They're based on data capture. They're based on profiling people. That's the nature of these platforms. And we are moving more and more our activities, private, collective, social, political, economic, into these platforms.
Speaking of algorithms, I read in your book something that I had an opinion about, but I learned more about it through your book. It's a new family of algorithmic technologies that are emerging, neurotechnologies. And could you tell us a line about what exactly this is?
Yeah, neurotechnologies are the new kind of technologies that interface the big digital machine directly with our minds and our brains without the mediation of a screen. So imagine just the vertiginous consequences of connecting directly our brain to that digital space that sits behind those passwords and those accounts, etc.
So, okay, this whole intersection of neurobiology and algorithms is mind-blowing for me and scary at the same time. So we're moving from algorithms that show us what we should see, basically, right, to algorithms that decide, and algorithms that are AI agents of autonomously deciding about everything in the world. My question for you is, how do we navigate this new reality? Is there a way to, because...
The first thing is that, of course, these technologies cannot be uninvented, right? Okay. This notion that is just a period and then they're going to go away or whatever, that's not what's happening. What's happening is these technologies are coming into our lives at increasingly faster speeds. And no technology can be uninvented once it is invented. But no technology comes into the world without bringing new questions and new challenges and potential consequences. So we need to be extremely aware of that. Of course, we need to engage with, let's say AI, one of the new tech coming into our lives. There are probably going to be no jobs in the future that will not have something to do directly or indirectly with artificial intelligence. So we need to engage with these technologies, but we need to choose how to engage with these technologies. In the book, I have a chapter about this notion of technological resistance. Okay. And I really invite everyone to think about this and to potentially adopt such a posture. So technological resistance is not a rejection of technology. It's a way to adopt technology without being enthusiastically blind about it, okay. But with critical distance, with constant vigilance, with the necessity to understand not only how to use technology efficiently so that I can have an immediate gain. Ask ChatGPT to write a draft of a letter, that's an immediate gain, that's real, it exists. But also ask ourselves, what are these technologies by nature? Who has developed them? Why they are the way they are? Technologies are not something that falls from the sky all shaped. They are developed by people, they are deployed by people, they're used by people, they're chosen by people, and therefore they could be different. So why are they the way they are? Who controls them? Why they've been developed as they have been developed? And one last point, which is very important for this notion of technological resistance, is don't believe the bullshit the tech companies put out into the world about their tech, right? Especially now that everything they say, and everything they do for those three companies that are soon having an IPO is absolutely structured around the needs of the IPO and not around truth, facts, or the benefit of the world.
In your book, you have this interesting concept of, well, it's an interesting story around the concept of hypnocracy. And it's a fun fact that you mention. It's a nice story that I think our audience would like to hear about.
Yeah, so there is this concept, hypnocracy, which somehow describes the fact that in today's world, thanks to these technologies, power doesn't express itself only through coercion and violence and these kind of things and pressure, which of course keep existing, but also through the modulation of our understanding of the world, of our states of consciousness in a way. And that's this notion that we are kind of hypnotized by the screen and the feeds and the constant outrage on social media and so on. The funny part of the story is that this concept was the title of a book published in Italy last year and then released in other languages as well, presented as the first foreign translation of an essay by a young Chinese philosopher. Turns out the philosopher doesn't exist, and the book was written by the publisher with 2 chatbots. And somehow, it's kind of an aesthetic experiment, right? It's trying to make a point and prove the point at the same time, because the notion of hypnocracy doesn't explain everything, but helps understand a lot of the things that are going on in our world.
So by the book, you understand that it actually works, because that's how it was
Yes,
written.
exactly.
So you're a tech skepticist, right? And clearly there are, I think, no? You're not a pessimist.
Skeptic, sure.
Yeah.
Critical.
So what are the things that perhaps...
Have you noticed I'm critical?
Yes, forever has been. What are the things that excite you, perhaps? Is there a technology, something in the world of science, medicine, that AI does, and you could say, oh yeah, it's fascinating?
Yeah, lots of things, because of course technology is here, it works, has huge potential, somehow has a level of beauty. But if you think of things like artificial intelligence, first of all, we talk a lot about generative artificial intelligence, chatbots and these kind of things. There are other kinds of artificial intelligence that do other things than generate text and images and videos and code. And they're already embedded in our lives in fantastic ways. They really produce real tangible benefits. Think of systems that read radiological images in hospitals, for example, faster and potentially often better than doctors, so they become a real support to the medical process. Or acceleration of drug discovery, for example, by modeling some elements of the process. Or modeling very complex systems, anything from the climate to the weather to the notion of digital twins has a lot of promises. But we need to choose how we use this kind of things. It's really important that we don't let them just into the world without caution, because the notion that we can unleash into society technologies this powerful with almost no oversight and almost no regulation, almost no boundaries. Technologies that purport to imitate and potentially replace human cognition in many functions. The notion we can release this without rules or very little rules, and that everything is going to be fine, it's totally absurd. So we really need to figure out how to harness these things and control them in a better way.
So based on what you said, the word choice, and we have to choose, I'd like to leave you with a thought that stood out, and again, I read in your book. So it's like food for thought, okay? So about 2,400 years ago, Plato defined the new technology of writing. Okay, in the past it wasn't new then, but he was thinking about writing at that time. And he defined writing as pharmakon, which in ancient Greek, and me being Greek, and I had to end something with an etymology of Greek, meant 2 things at the same time. It was a medicine and a poison, right? So writing was a pharmakon. It was a medicine that preserves memory, and it was a poison because it replaces memory. And in your book, Bruno, you suggest that AI is the pharmakon of our generation. So I'm just leaving you with a thought of whether it becomes a poison or a medicine. It's up to us.
But let me add one short thing. We know that Plato thought that way because he told us by writing, so by using the technology that he was challenging and questioning, right?
Yes.
And this is the same approach we need to use with AI. We need to use it, but in a challenging and questioning manner.
Anything else?
Thank you.